It's time for the RPM Podcast, starring Eric Brennan.
I like lemon parties.
Sam Ballard Jr.
All right, that's it, young man. No Bible stories for you tonight.
Nick Rendo.
Yeah, I would rather have a bigger one.
Scott Riggleman.
That guy's trash, and I want him off our screen.
And Josh Matthews.
He doesn't need those doctors.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome for the 107th time here on the RPM Podcast. We got another packed porch edition. Sam Ballard Jr. here alongside producer Josh Matthews. Josh, how are you, sir?
I'm not alongside you.
You're in front of me,
Yeah.
as usual, on the front. Besides Josh, I got the Rigglemans, the trifecta going on here. I got Bailey, Tim, and Scott. How are you guys?
I'm good.
Good. Welcome back, Bailey. Episode number 2 for you.
That's 2 words. I need a little
True.
counter
Yeah,
thing.
that's right. That's true. Yeah.
You're getting it. You have a lot to beat from last week with your sister. Okay.
Oh boy. Tim, how are you, sir?
I'm good, thank you.
Good to hear. Scott, we thought you quit. How you doing?
No, I didn't quit. I've just been real busy with the race cars. You know, we have 4 race cars in my shop now, 2 dirt, 2 asphalt. So I've been super busy with them. I was actually changing the front springs in Nancy's dirt car for a Friday night Enduro race at Bridgeport. But nah, I missed the show. I'm glad to be back, and I hope to make a bunch more.
Speaking of show, we have a show tonight. Casey Robichaud, how are you?
I am peachy as fuzz.
Well, that's nice. That's nice. Now, you can't see him, but we promise you he's here. We have NASCAR Wheelie Modified Tour driver, points leader.
Current points leader,
and winner of 4 races so far this year, Justin Bonsignore. Justin, how are you, sir?
Good. How you doing, guys? Pleasure to be on.
Great to have you on. Thanks for your patience because, of course, the night that we have Justin on, all hell breaks loose on the audio side of the RPM Podcast.
No, most of it's Casey's fault.
I said hi to Justin like 5 times, but he couldn't hear me. So hi, Justin.
Hey, how are you?
I'm fantastic.
So anyway, for those who didn't listen to last week's episode, we covered the modified race in New Hampshire. Justin was a part of that. Justin, I believe your last win came at Riverhead, did it not?
Yeah, our last points win was at the Riverhead 200 back in early July. We actually were fortunate enough to win the All-Star event at New Hampshire last weekend. With a good showing there, and then we followed that up with a 4th on Saturday.
That's right. Now, I know you've raced in New Hampshire before. As a fan, because I'm not a driver myself, do you enjoy going to a flat track like New Hampshire? I know you have a lot of short track experience being the type of tour mod driver that you are. Is New Hampshire one of your favorite tracks to go to?
Yeah, without a doubt. The way the modifieds race at New Hampshire with the 1 mile flat track, and we run a restrictor plate, and the amount of drag our cars produce, it makes for great pack racing. And we use the draft every lap, and it's intense. You're on the edge of your seat the whole time, fan, and being inside the car is just as intense. The last I think the last 5 laps there was 7 lead changes just at the start finish line, no matter whatever happened else throughout the lap. So it's a crazy race. It's always a lot of fun, especially when you have big cars, and it's a great place to watch a race.
That's awesome. I want to get up there one day. I know you're considered a local guy up here on the RPM Podcast because you're from Long Island, aren't you?
Yeah. Yep. Not too far from Jersey, right in the middle of the island, about an hour east of the city, about 20 minutes from Riverhead. So not too far from the Wall Stadium clan.
Yeah, well, you got it here tonight.
Yeah.
Got a big taste of it tonight. Well, that's awesome. I know we have a lot of questions for you, and we're just starting up here. I know you're leading the points as of now. Hopefully, we seem to bring a lot of bad luck to people that come on the show. Though Scott's been winning a lot.
Don't say that. That's not even true.
So,
oh, great.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I come on the show all the time, and I've been winning, so you'll be all right.
Yeah.
Good.
So, you guys are looking at race.
I went out like daily, Sam. So just saying.
Right.
Actually, I was going to say, normal. I think Eric Brennan is actually the curse because I remember, after we had, Stephen Reed on, he had some really hard luck and other drivers as well. I think Joey Bailey also had some rough luck after we interviewed him. However, after we had Tony Hirschman on last week, Kyle Busch did pretty darn well.
He did.
Yeah. So, maybe we aren't quite the jinx. So we're going to find out. You're going to be our next test.
You'll hear on Saturday if not.
Well, that's a good thing then, because no news is bad news, right?
No news. Yeah, sure.
So now, you said next week you guys are racing at Stafford for the 150 150 lap race there. It's a night race, is it not?
Yes.
Am I wrong? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So as a driver, do you prepare differently for a night race and day race, especially going from a race with New Hampshire, like you said, with the speeds and stuff, compared to Stafford?
Not really. I mean, it's a little tougher just because we practice during the day and then we'll race at nights. You gotta just know what you're looking for in the car during practice, and the right adjustments that you need to make for the nighttime. And it all depends on if any dew rolls in or what type of night it is weather-wise, and if it'll affect the race differently. But we've been going to Stafford for a long time now, so you have a good idea of what it's going to do each night and what you need to look for during practice to ensure you're going to have a good car that night. So, otherwise, it's cool to race under the lights and in front of usually a packed house at Stafford for sure.
Stafford's a great race.
Now, Justin, going back to the New Hampshire race, did you use the same race car in the All-Star race as you did in the regular race, or did you have two separate cars for that weekend?
No, we obviously brought two cars well prepared, but we decided to just go with the one car and concentrate on because you only get the one practice for both events. So you're really concentrating on what you need to do for the 100-lap points race. And then, it's a random blind draw for the All-Star race, and we drew right in the middle of the pack. It was either fall to the back or try and race to the front. We had a really good car, so the field kind of strung out a little bit, and we got to fourth or fifth, and then I think they had the invert of 5, and that put us on the front row for the restart. And at that point you have the track position with a good car. You got to try and stay up front and stay out of the mess, and we were able to hold everybody off for the win.
Now, this year, didn't you switch to a new chassis manufacturer? Weren't you a Spafco guy last year, and didn't you switch over to LFR or something over the winter?
Yeah, so we were with Spafco for the last 4 years, and unfortunately we had to make a crew chief change, just some personal things for my other crew chief, Billy. He was has a growing family and needed more time at home, so we started looking around for a new crew chief and came across Ryan Stone and Robbie Fuller with LFR, and we were able to put a deal together between everybody, and we made the switch and got these cars ready to go for Myrtle Beach, and everything's obviously been going really well between myself, Ryan Stone, and the whole team, and with LFR. It's been a great transition.
Now, I'm assuming you use the spec engine. Everybody's using the spec engines now. I was just wondering who your engine builder is. I know some people use Robert Yates. Some people use Billy the Kid. What engine builder are you using with the spec engine?
We deal directly with Robert Yates Racing Engines with David Lewis. We were one of the first teams back in 2014 to make that switch, and obviously Robert has passed, but Robert and David, they took care of us from the beginning, and they always looked out for us and always did the right thing by us. So we're very loyal to them, and they do a really good job for our team.
Now, do you still have any of the older style built engines? I know some of the modified tour teams, to use up their inventory, they'll use a built engine at a small track like a Riverhead or a Seekonk or something like that, or you just fully have spec engines now?
Yeah, we fully have spec engines. We held on to them for the first year just in case it didn't work out, but we actually, that first year, we were fortunate enough to win a bunch of races, and that kind of sold us and a lot of other people on the spec engine. That if that kid can win and he's not in good, that we better get him. Everybody since then is almost everybody has gone to the spec engine. All the bigger teams, obviously.
Now getting back to Stafford, will you be using your Loudon car at Stafford, or do you have a different car for Stafford?
We actually we have two race ready cars. They're identical cars. We don't really demote them to any. Denote, not demote, to anything in particular. We just try to typically rotate one car every other race to make sure the car we raced at New Hampshire is the backup this week, and then it'll be the primary for Thompson. Just always trying to rotate cars to be one car ahead of being prepared, and make sure that both cars go to the track in case you have a situation you need to roll out the backup car, and everything will be prepared 100% that if you needed to get it out, you could do it. So it's just a little easier on the maintenance side to have one car ready instead of just turning the same car over every week. And we're fortunate enough with my team that we could have 2 cars like that.
Is this going to be the same car that you ran last time at Stafford, Justin? Or do you remember?
No, it will be a different car. So for us, we've actually, I think we've won. Actually, I know we've won twice with each car. A couple poles with one car and not the other. So there's a little bit. We have like a little running joke of the competition between the cars, but both of them have been really good. This will be the first time we're running this car at a bigger track. So, but I'm really confident they're identical pieces and they'll be prepared equally as good.
Now, obviously you can tell the 2 cars apart, but in conversation, when you're having conversations with your car owner and your crew, how do you identify the cars? Do you have a code number for them, or maybe a nickname for the cars to say what car you're running, or is there a different color on the car or something like that you can identify the car with?
So always in years past, I was always very hands-on with the team, but now the team is based out of Connecticut where my crew chief lives. And if my seats weren't the slightest bit different mounted in the cars, I wouldn't be able to tell the difference sitting in them. Our cars are named. We've always done that since we began the team. Years ago, we named the chassis just for fun, and we kind of run with that now. So other than that, though, they're so identical you couldn't tell to the naked eye.
Just curious, what are the names of your race cars, and why do you pick those names for them?
So my crew chief picked them. We led it up to him this year. It's his first year with the team, and I don't even know. I don't ask him why he got picked, but it's Big Chief and Boss Hoss. So I think it's just stupid stuff we say, and it just stuck with them. So we like to keep it fun and lighthearted and have a good time.
It's a good thing they don't race in the rain.
Go ahead.
What's that, Casey?
I said, what is your favorite race car? Like, I guess the name of a past race car you've had.
These 2 are pretty good. We had one. It was our first Bafco car. It came and it was Hulk Green, the frame, and we called it the Green Machine forever. And we had a really good run with that car. It even changed colors after a couple years, and it was the Green Machine until the day we sold it. So. That's probably my favorite one. But there's some other good ones too. We just had weird ones. We called one Eddie Murphy. Just stupid stuff we could come up with. But, it stuck and everybody knew it, and it just was something to have fun with.
So we've heard this past weekend at Pocono, the Cup race, I believe Kyle Busch and his crew chief had these code terms like I need more strawberries and stuff like that. Do you have a relationship like that with your crew chief? Do you guys have code terms, code words that you use to describe your race car? Or is there no time for that when you're behind the wheel?
We don't mess around with anything. I understand why they do it at their level.
Right.
Because they're all scanning each other during their stops. And there's so many pit stops during those races that, if you can study what adjustments they do and everything, you can learn from it. But our races are so short with 1, maybe 2 pit stops. It's just and it's such a quick happening on a half-mile track. Pits are open and, I need this in my car to go better. So we don't mess around with any of that. During practice, we try to stay off the radio as much as possible and communicate, eye to eye. So that way, the teams that might be scanning you don't hear what you're saying or what you're thinking, but it's not to that level, thank God. Cause I don't want to have to remember, strawberries or
if his arm itches
or anything like that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm still dying over here. Anyway.
Well, that's good.
Now, Justin, do you race anywhere other besides the NASCAR Tour? Do you ever go to like Tri-Track Series or MRS or anything like that, or even an open show like Riverhead last weekend with a 77 lap, or come down to Turkey Derby or something like that, or you just stick with the NASCAR stuff?
I haven't this year. Our only race outside of the tour that was scheduled this year was supposed to be the Islip 300 at Riverhead, and then it got rained out, and the makeup date just didn't work for us. But with everything, we switched to LFR and having Ryan come on board. We really just wanted to focus on the tour, and the way the schedule's laid out, sometimes it's just such quick turnaround to be prepared to the level that we feel we need to be prepared. So we tend to sit out a lot of open shows, and for many reasons. Sometimes the tech isn't as stingy as NASCAR, or the rules package that we run with NASCAR doesn't really bode well for us in other divisions. So kind of just stick to the NASCAR stuff. I'd be open to it if another team, said, hey, you want to come drive our car? But I also kind of like the time away, and commuting from Long Island, as anybody knows, is not the easiest of things either. So I don't look to sign myself up for extra stuff. I did Stafford weekly in the past, and that was the craziest thing I ever did, was drive 3 hours each way on a Friday afternoon through Long Island and Connecticut. So I've kind of learned from those things, and my job's a little tougher for me to miss days now. So just I do with what I think is important and what I'm most interested in, and that's the NASCAR series.
Good.
Well,
so if somebody wants to race the Turkey Derby, all right.
In the Tortec mods, then.
Wait, say that again, Casey.
But I guess I won't be seeing him in Victory Lane at the with the tour types at Evergreen this year.
No, probably not.
Justin, have you ever raced out at Evergreen or a track like that?
Mountain Speedway, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I back years ago, before when I was racing weekly at Riverhead, we would always go out there a couple times a year, always to the King of the Mountain race. I think from like 06 to 09, we went out there every year for those races, and I always ran pretty well out there. I liked racing that track. It was a lot of fun. They used to spray the PJ1, I guess now it's called, on the track, and it was a lot of fun out there. I enjoyed that track.
What is your favorite track that you've driven on personally?
I mean, I've taken well to Thompson, and I run really well there. I've been fortunate enough to win there, and I just like going there. It's a fun racetrack. You run into the corners as deep as you possibly can, and you hope the car stops and turns and just instantly back to the throttle. So I've had a lot of success there, and it's become probably my favorite racetrack.
Now, out of what the tour runs, what is your favorite? I mean, even if you haven't been able to personally drive at one of the tracks, what would you say the one that you think is the most exciting would be?
Oh, for sure, it's definitely Bristol. As far as an adrenaline rush goes. The first year we went down there, I was young. I was 20, 21 years old, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. Now that I'm 30, you go down there and they spray the PJ1 on the track, and you're just hanging on for dear life for 150 laps, nearly flat out. It's definitely very intense. You're on the edge the whole time as far as, almost wrecking. It's just a crazy event. And this year's probably going to be even crazier because they're running a restrictor plate and a bigger spoiler to slow us down. I think it's going to turn into more of a momentum. Don't lift at all. If you lift, you're getting just killed or moved out of the way. So it's going to be crazy.
Wow. What track that we don't go to would you like the tour to go to?
Oh, that's a good question. Richmond. I've never. I mean, I've seen some videos of Richmond from years ago, but I think that would be a really cool track. As far as maybe the big stage. As far as the tour, I think New Smyrna would be a great track.
Amen.
There's tons of tracks. There's some tracks in Virginia, like Motor Mile and South Boston. There's so many tracks we could go to that are great. And then there's so many in Western New York and PA. There's a lot of tracks we could go to that would be fun.
Justin, do you think the modifieds would work at Dover, or do you think Dover is just too big and too banked for a modified?
I think they could try a test, but I think it's just too fast. Bristol's kind of I hate to say scary enough, but Bristol puts our cars at the limits of what they're built for. It's not the speeds; it's when you hit something. Our cars are just not built to withstand that type of load and to knock the wall down there. I mean, fortunately, they have safer barriers there, and I've tested them out, and they work. But it's our cars, they're very safe. By no means am I saying they're not safe, but it's just not to the level of what a cup car is. Some of those tracks we run.
Now, I'm just curious. What is your opinion of Bowman Gray? I know it's dangerous. I just want
to let you know, Josh does not like Bowman Gray, and I'm not a big fan of it. I don't really consider it racing. I consider it more like WWE wrestling.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that track, and have you ever raced there before?
Yeah, I've never raced there. It's on the bucket list. I think it's something you have to do just because of the heritage and the history behind it and being around for so many years. I've only been there once to watch years ago. We were down there at Martinsville. That's another track, Martinsville, we need to go back to.
Yeah,
we were at
modified
Martinsville
need to be back in Martinsville.
Yeah, we went to watch Bowman Gray that night, and I mean, it was just a complete shit show, and it was just fun to watch. But I mean, I'm from Riverhead, so it's
yeah, you're kind of used to it coming from Riverhead.
Yeah, I mean, that Wall, Riverhead, Bowman Gray mentality, it's just kind of all the same. I would love to try it once.
See, now when I've been to Bowman Gray to spot for a normal Saturday night race, and that is, like Scott said, like WWE, but we went there with Goodale for one of the last Southern modified races they had there, and they actually raced. It wasn't that WWE type stuff. So, can you race there cleanly and pass? Yes, you can. They just choose not to do it there. You know?
Right. I just think
I mean, that's just a product of the officiating, and that's in every series. If they allow you to get away with it, people are going to do it. Do unto others before they do unto you, especially at a place like that. But Riverhead, same way. For many years there was not very strong officiating, and you could get away with anything. And then they bring in a guy like Scott Tapley, who's well known for being very strict with putting people down or putting people to the rear, and it kind of makes people think twice about it.
I think that's a good thing, really.
I think for sure.
Tapley.
Now, Justin, growing up on Long Island, how did you get started in racing? Has your family always been involved in racing? Was it because of Riverhead? Did you do go-karting or quarter midgets or anything like that?
Yeah, so my family was very heavily involved in go-karting. Well before I was born, my dad and his two brothers owned and operated a very successful parts business, and my uncle, Bill, was a very successful engine builder in go-karting from the early 80s all the way to the mid-90s. And myself and my cousin Kyle, who races on the tour occasionally, became old enough when we started racing go-karts, and then his sisters and my little brother started with it, and we've been obviously racing ever since. So I've been racing since '96 in go-karts, and we traveled all over the world, not the world, the states, East Coast, Midwest, racing go-karts nationally, regionally, and when I became old enough to race a stock car, I moved up to a Charger car at Riverhead, and from there we went to a modified and did that for a few years before I met my owners now, Ken and Janine, and I've been with them since '09.
I'm glad you said you're a karting guy from Long Island, because I got a question and I can never get a straight answer. Maybe you can let me know where I was at. My very, very first race in a go-kart was out on Long Island, and I was pretty sure it was a place called West Hampton. And there was an old oval track there. They used to race modifieds there back in the day, and then they had a road course set up for the go-karts. But everybody's telling me no, I was at Bridgehampton, but I thought I remembered it as West Hampton. Do you remember that out that way?
Yeah, I grew up racing there. They had the drag strip out front and the go-kart track in the back. It had the old, I think it was like a 5/8 mile high bank.
High bank, right? Oval.
Back in the day.
Yeah.
I think in the 70s. And then they turned it into a go-kart track with an oval involved in it too.
Right. So it was West Hampton I raced at, right?
Yeah. They're obviously
Bridgehampton was a big road course that the Cup cars raced on, right?
Bridgehampton was where the Cup cars raced.
Right. Okay. Did you ever race at West Hampton then?
Yeah, as a kid, I was. That's where I started racing go-karts locally. I raced a lot of road course events there, and then they put a quarter-mile oval in towards the later years, and that was a fun place for both tracks. Sure.
So West Hampton isn't there anymore?
No, it's 55 and older homes now. Been that way for probably I don't know, maybe 15 years, I bet.
Oh wow.
Casey, did
Bailey, you got any questions for Justin? Here's your chance.
No.
No. Casey, did you had a question for Justin, and Scott was talking over you?
I did?
Oh, I thought you did. They're fine. I'll just keep ignoring you.
I think she just got a text message.
But I didn't have one at the moment.
No, you're good. You're good.
So I was going to ask Justin, what tracks in Germany he raced when he said he
raced around the world.
but I guess that's shot down.
He mentioned that he doesn't really race outside the mods, the tour mods, but we know he races at Wall Stadium for Turkey Derby, and he mentioned that earlier, which is good. You know, races at Wall. Wall's a cool track. You know, a little biased here in the RPM podcast, but that's okay.
No.
But I think... Go ahead, Casey. Oh, no, that was a laugh. Anyway, man...
Laugh, Sam? Oh, my God.
You need a better headset. That's what you need. So I think that pretty...
I wonder if her headset would work better on her phone. It wouldn't work on her laptop. We know that.
Anyway.
Perfect. It's not the Crash Casey show. We've got Justin on the phone.
We do have Justin on the phone. But I think we've abused Justin enough. I think we've wasted his time enough here on the RPM podcast.
I got one last question for Justin.
No.
Justin, now that you are a modified tour driver, are you looking to maybe go higher up the ladder, like maybe a truck series ride, or maybe do some ARCA races, or maybe even like Xfinity, like Ryan Preece is doing?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I would love to. You know, our sport is a very tough sport to be in this day and age, and has been for a long time. And obviously, it's very money driven, and you need to have a sponsor behind you. And you know, obviously, I'm 30 now, so it's a little tougher at that age. As even Ryan's finding out at 27, with all the success he's having, he's still struggling a little bit to stay down full time. So. I'd say the going south thing is out of the question for me right now, and I'm not upset about that in the least. I don't want to do it to say I did it. I would only do it in the way Ryan's doing it, with a successful team and having a shot to win. I really love racing modifieds, and I've said this a couple times now that there's nothing wrong with being a modified guy for life. You know, you look at guys like Stefanik and Teddy and Reggie and all those guys. They did it forever, and you know, they were very successful at it, and you know, worked normal 9-to-5 jobs during the week and went racing, you know, during the weekends and all over the place, and, you know, made careers and became legends, you know, doing it. So I would love for, you know, at the end of my career that I could be in, you know, possibly in that type of, you know, conversation. And I think being a modified guy is a great thing, and it's a lot of fun and great series to be in, a lot of great fans, great racing. It's just everything about it I think is the best.
Yeah, we agree with you 100%. We also love the modifieds on the RPM podcast.
Scott especially agrees
Josh
with you,
doesn't,
because Scott is
Josh is a fender guy. He doesn't like the modifieds.
But Scott is also how old, and he's going to be a factory stock lifer. So.
Yeah, I'm 45. I still think I'm going to make it down south. So I don't know. I think I'm a lifer in the factory stock division.
I have a question for you. This kind of show my age on. I remember like when you were the new kid coming up in the tour racing, and now you're very well accomplished. You won half the races this year, the point leader. Who do you think is going to be the next new kid to come up? Like, who do you have your eye on that think might be successful in a modified?
Paulie.
I mean, there's definitely a few. A
Blake
lot
Barney's
of them are now getting start on the tour. You look at you know, Jersey guy Blake Barney. He's got a lot of potential. He's really successful. Down in Jersey, he's been running really well on the tour. He's one that pops up as, you know, in a couple of years he'll be a guy to beat. Obviously, with the team he's going to be with, he'll be successful. But I think the guys right now you need to look at obviously are Chase Dowling and Craig Lutz. You know, they're two of the youngest guys on the tour still that are. You know, Chase has been around for a couple of years, and Lutz has done some part-time stuff for a while, but. Both got great opportunities right now, and they're both showing that. Chase has been right behind us all year in points and battling us tooth and nail. And Lutz was right there for a while and has run into a little bit of bad luck lately, but you know, still top 5 in points and on the verge of winning a race real soon, both of them. So you know, the tour is definitely in good hands. There's a lot of young kids coming up. But you still got a good chunk of veterans, and I'm somewhere right in the middle right now. You know, you got guys like Doug who are higher, you know, later 30s, and you know, a couple other guys that age, and you know, you got me in the middle at like 30ish, Timmy Salmino mid 20s. So it's a really good time, I think, right now. Car counts are up, racing's competitive. You know, it's just it's a really good series right now, and I think it could only get better.
I want to give a shout out. There's one guy I know he's raced in the Legends at Wall and other places. I think he actually raced with your cousin Eric Graham there. Anyway, Joe DeGracia in the 23 D. I know he was up
Joey
there.
D.
Yeah. I know he was in the lead.
Justin knows who he is.
Oh yeah, we know who he is.
He was in the lead for the restart because he didn't pit at New Hampshire, but and then I think he got out of the way and then pitted to
Joey
let everybody
D.
go
If
by.
you didn't know him, he makes sure you know who he is.
But
he's a really good guy.
Yeah,
I like
he
Joey.
is. He's a good dude.
Yeah, I remember him running Legends at Wall a couple times, and it's good to see another local guy getting out there and doing it, living the dream
Now,
there.
Justin, are you happy with? Are you happy? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
He's been getting a lot better, and I think he's learning, just how tough this tour is, and he's just got to, I've talked to him and his dad a bunch, and he's just got to, put his expectations in, a little bit more of a check and understand that there's a learning curve involved with this, and they're getting better and better every week. He led some laps at New Hampshire last weekend on the restart, and but at the same time, he knows to give the leaders respect and gets out of their way, and he's doing a really good job. And he's another one that, with seat time and laps, you're only going to get better. And I've told him that a few times now.
Good.
Now, when I first started going tour racing with John, we were doing 24 races a year. Now we're down to 14. Are you happy with that? Would you like to do more? Or you think 14, where we are now is good?
Got what? We have 16 now.
Yeah.
I'd say 20 would be, I think, a perfect number. I think any more than that would be tough. I think a lot of guys with the days off of work in this time with the, the way the economy is and just people's jobs, I think it's a little tougher nowadays. I think we could squeeze in 4 more, though, at least 2 more, and that would be a good, comfortable series. And, it gives you a mulligan or 2 if you have a bad one with a few more races to make up for it. But I think they would have to be at new racetracks, places we don't go now, to spice the series up even more.
Yeah, I agree. I have one before we get rid of you. I like to talk about food on here. And you mentioned your cousin Kyle. They bring the best tuna fish sandwiches to the racetrack. Did you ever have one of those?
Probably when I was a kid. My aunt has been making those for I don't even know how many, since we were kids racing go-karts. And I probably ate them as a kid, but I don't mess with seafood, and I don't care if it's a tuna fish sandwich. I don't mess with it. So it is world-renowned, and I knew as soon as you started that's where it was going, and you mentioned Kyle. So
I make sure I find his spotter every week and say, yo, boy, when you come back up here, I want 4 of those sandwiches.
Oh, my God. You're gonna run the Mooresville area out of tuna.
Thanks, boy.
with that.
But, hey, I just want to mention real quick, I was lucky enough, Justin, to hang out with you and your crew the last time you guys were at Stafford. Y'all are really a class act. You guys are a lot of fun. So I'm sure Sam's going to exit you out of the show because that's what he does with everybody. But I just wanted to see his luck back up there again. It was a lot of fun last time. So go get him, guy.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, we try to keep it lighthearted and fun at times. And then when it's time to go racing and do our jobs, we're serious as well. So that's what it's all about, is having fun with your friends.
I just try to do my job here on the RPM podcast. I'd love to sit here and talk racing with Justin, but we have other stuff to talk about. Justin has a life outside of this. He has to go win the championship this year in the Tour. So with that, Justin, we appreciate you coming on the RPM podcast. I see you liked us on Facebook, so if you haven't already, to our listeners, go follow Justin's lead and go follow us on Facebook.
Oh, I thought you meant to go like him.
They'll be following Justin for the rest of the season. That's what it sounds like they're going to do.
Do you have any sponsors or anything you want to thank, Justin?
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, obviously, we can never do it without anybody or everybody. So, we got Phoenix Communications, our primary sponsor. My owners, Ken and Jeannie Massa of M3 Technology, LFR Race Cars, Robert Yates Engines, and, we got a host of product sponsors that support us as well. So, and as well as my team, obviously, led by Ryan Stone and all the guys. They do a great job, and I just get to be the lucky guy that drives it. So, can't thank them enough for everything they do.
Yeah, I agree. I knew about your going over the LFR probably a little earlier than some people. And when I heard you were getting stoned, I'm like, then that's going to be tough to beat. And you guys have proved that right out of the box. There's nobody better in the pit area than Ryan Stone, that's for sure. And
he is he's unbelievable. I knew him, and I've spoken to him a bunch in the past, but now getting to know him and hang out with him and work with him, he is a riot. He'll make your stomach hurt from laughing, and then the next minute he's 180 degrees and just focused on what we need to do to make the race car better. But it's been a great time so far, and hopefully we can continue it through the second half of the season and finish this deal out.
Well, with that, we're going to finish you out, Justin, here on the RPM podcast. We appreciate you coming on. We hope to talk to you soon. Maybe in November you'll have a championship trophy to come back and talk about.
Hopefully not Saturday, because that means that we screwed up and jinxed them.
So we screwed you up, Justin. I'm sorry. It was nice knowing you, and we appreciate you coming on. But thanks again, buddy, and we look forward to seeing you and your success on the racetrack.
Thank you and good luck.
Thank you, guys. Pleasure to be on. And anything Freddie Kraft says later is a lie.
With that, we have Freddie Kraft.
Spoiler alert.
Coming up here on the RPM podcast. Thank you, Justin. And
thanks, Justin,
for coming on. And we'll see you on the other side here on the RPM podcast.
Thanks.
Hey everyone, this is Eric Brennan from the RPM Podcast. If you're looking for a dependable full auto repair and preventative maintenance center, then you need to check out O'Shea's Auto Repair in Wall, New Jersey. The family man himself, Tim O'Shea, has been providing the highest quality of automotive repair since 2000 on both domestic and imported cars, trucks, and SUVs. From race cars to street cars, O'Shea's Auto Repair covers it all. For more information, visit their website at o'sheasautorepair.com. O'Shea's Auto Repair, supporter of the RPM Podcast and proud sponsor of the O'Shea Auto Repair Factory stops at Wall Stadium Speedway.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the 107th episode of the RPM Podcast. We want to thank our friend Justin Bonsignore for coming on for the first segment of the show. But as of now...
But what was the last thing he said right before we went over?
Right, he kind of gave our listeners some blue balls as he welcomed our next guest, Freddie...
You say that? You say welcomed? I'm not sure that was a welcome.
I think it was a welcome.
He said anything that Freddie says is the truth.
Right. That was
said the exact opposite of that.
That was the Long Island welcome.
Yeah, that was the Riverhead welcome.
Yeah. So anyway,
by the way, he said you're number one.
The man we're speaking of is the spotter of the number 43, Bubba Wallace Camaro. He's also the spotter for Garrett Smithley in the Xfinity Series and the 20 truck, Mr. Freddie Kraft. Freddie, how are you this evening?
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate you saving best for last.
Just don't tell Justin.
Instantly snapping Justin.
That's how we do it on the RPM podcast. So let's get right into it. The elephant's in the room. I know, Freddie, you had a very busy weekend this weekend at Pocono. It wasn't quite the race you turned out to be. However, your season so far overall in that number 43 looks pretty strong, no?
Yeah, I mean, we got off to a pretty good start. Obviously, Daytona finished in second. And had a couple good runs. Atlanta, we finished up front. And Bristol, we got up there, led some laps. And now we've kind of hit a little bit of a, slow point in the year where we run about 20th, 25th every week. But we're working on it, getting on it little by little.
Well, you guys just also released some news this past weekend that Bubba Wallace will be with the RPM till 2020, no?
Yeah, they extended him for another 2 years, so that's good for Bubba. Hopefully things work out the same way. I can stick with him like we've been doing.
I didn't know we extended him.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Richard Petty Motorsports, not the RPM podcast. But if they're
now,
interested
Freddie,
in the
with
RPM
that being
podcast,
said, are you employed by Bubba or are you employed by RPM?
I'm actually self-employed. It's an independent contractor deal, basically, where I get paid from RPM, but I basically work on my own, work for myself. I just send them invoices each week.
I was actually saying, just send him an invoice, though.
Well, that's a cool gig.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be complaining. I mean, you get to travel, and Bubba Wallace seems to be a great guy to hang out and eat Domino's with anyway.
So do you have to set up, like, your own LLC kind of thing and insurance and all that? Like, do you have to go through all those hoops?
Some of the guys do. I do not. I just do independent contractor work, and then, hey, just get a 1099 at the end of the year.
This is not where I thought this interview was going to go.
The business of being a spotter.
I didn't realize.
Well, it's kind of where I wanted to go. I wanted to know how the spotting works at that level, and that was one question I did have. Do the drivers pick the spotters, or do the teams pick the spotter, or is it a different case scenario with each driver and with each team?
Yeah, it's case by case basis, really. I would say majority of the time the driver picks them. But if it's a new driver coming into a situation, a guy like, say, William Byron, he'll come, like the guy that was spotting there for Junior, TJ Majors, left. So they had an opening. So it was kind of, they gave William 3 or 4 guys. He went back and listened to audio, ended up picking Tab Boyd, who was Joey Logano's spotter. So it's kind of a case-by-case basis. I've been working with Bubba for about 8-9 years now. So when he got a ride in the Cup level, the plan was always for us to keep working together. So he kind of put his foot down and made sure that I went wherever he was going.
So were you with him when he won the truck race at Michigan last year and all the other races before that?
Yeah, the only time I wasn't with Bubba spotting was I think it was like 2011 or 12. He ran 1 year in the Joe Gibbs K&N car. Other than that, I spotted pretty much every race he's run.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So do you guys, have a good friendship outside of the business relationship then?
Yeah. I'm tight with his family. They were all at my wedding. He's like a little brother to me, which made Sunday even harder. But it's definitely been a growing relationship over the last 8 or 9 years.
Are you like Ryan Blaney and Bubba tight, or are you like a different kind of tight?
No, we don't make out and cuddle or anything like that. But we just hang out every once in a while on the weekends.
What the hell does that mean?
Have you talked to Bubba since Sunday? How is he feeling? Is he sore? Is there any injuries from the accident on Sunday?
Yeah, so actually I had stole Bubba's car to come down the wall on Saturday night. So I parked it back at his coach on Sunday morning. And then when the race, the wreck happened, I went to the care center to make sure he was all right. And I actually drove him to the airport Sunday after the race was over. And he was fine when he got in the car. His foot started bothering him, swelling up a little bit. He had kicked the pedal. I guess his left foot slid under and kicked the gas pedal. So he had a pretty big knot on his foot. But I talked to him yesterday morning, talked to him a little bit today. Just he's all good. Everything. He says he's fine. So we'll see. They're gonna put him in a simulator tomorrow and make sure everything's good. But he's supposed to run the K&N race and the Cup race this weekend. So not the ideal weekend to hurt your left foot, but we'll try and get through it.
Well, we were very glad to hear he wasn't having twins. So.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. I was going to say, Sam was like, yeah, well, it's the elephant in the room. We'll get to it. Yeah, Freddie was at Wall this weekend. I mean, that's the...
Right. Freddie gets around, which is nice to know because, it's good to see some national love towards Wall Stadium.
Yeah, the only downside, he said, was that he had to talk to Eric Brennan while he was there.
Right, but not tonight.
I went out to Woody's with Eric Brennan afterwards.
Oh, boy.
Yeah,
that could not have ended well.
That's where I met Eric, so it wasn't so painful. I'd already
celebratory
drink.
Before we get to Wall, for people that don't know, Freddie is a modified guy. He grew up at Riverhead. Tell us how you got started from being a kid at Riverhead to where you are now.
So basically, my dad raced figure eights at Riverhead, Islip and Riverhead forever. My dad actually won the last ever race at Islip Speedway, so that's pretty cool. It was
that's cool.
Figure eights race, the last race of the night. So the last night they were open, he won the figure eight race, which was the last race. So he took the last victory lap around Islip Speedway. But then, so I did that for a little while. When I turned 16, I started racing. Wasn't very good at it. Didn't have the time, the money to put into it. So I decided that I was going to start helping my buddies out. So Jared Hayes, who's come down and run a couple turkey derbies, he's won a couple. I started spotting for him in the late models. Did a couple modified guys at Riverhead locally. Got hooked up with Eddie Partridge. He hired some jackass named Jimmy Blewett to drive his car. So I started spotting for Jimmy, and we clicked. And I worked with Jimmy for forever. It seems like I still work with him as much as I can, believe it or not.
Wow.
And so that was basically it. Then working for Eddie, I got a deal with Revolution Racing to spot for Bubba Wallace. They had actually asked a buddy of mine, Mike Herman, who now spots for Ricky Stenhouse, to do it. And he had just committed to Ty Dillon for the K&N deal. So he said, why don't you use my guy Freddie? So we went. The first race, me and Bubba won at Greenville. So that got off to a good start, and I've been with Bubba ever since. And then about a year later, me and my wife moved to, or at the time she was my girlfriend, we moved to North Carolina. And just started doing as much as I could, ARCA stuff, worked a lot for Venerini Motorsports. Went with Bubba to KBM when he ran the truck, did as much as I could do possibly. And then got a big break when Tommy Baldwin, obviously modified connection, let me spot for his Cup car when Michael Annette drove it in the pilot car. And then just kind of turned that into some other gigs, did a couple of years at Roush Fenway, was at Front Row last year. And then, just always stayed with Bubba while Bubba was wherever he was, running truck or Xfinity. And then turned that into where we're at now.
Seems like everybody's moving down to North Carolina.
Sam, you did. Casey was there. Everybody.
Casey came back though.
I did come back because I'm smart.
Freddie, we had Tony Hirschman on last week, and he still lives in Pennsylvania, in his hometown where he grew up. Did you have that option, or did you just move down to North Carolina to be closer to the teams, or could have you stayed on Long Island?
I mean, I could have stayed on Long Island, Scott, but it was a lot easier for me I felt like I needed to be where they were at. You know what I mean? Like if I'm visible to them, if I'm around, it's a lot easier, cost-effective wise for a team instead of having to fly Tony commercially, say, like obviously he's set now, he can do whatever he wants. But like if I was trying to get a K&N deal or an ARCA deal, they got a guy that can jump in the van and drive with him versus flying me to a race.
Right.
So it's a lot easier for me to get gigs being here. And, now if I probably wanted to, maybe I could move back and travel a little bit more. But, I mean, it's hard for even Tony. Like, I get to go home as soon as the race ends. Like, I'm on the plane an hour after the race is over. Tony's normally got to stay over the next day. He doesn't get to fly home till Monday morning. Sometimes he's got to go in a day early. So it's just even less time to be at home, and it's tough.
See, Sam,
now, what about your radio equipment itself? Do you own that, or is that something that Bubba owns or the team, or Richard Petty Motorsports own?
So it's the same thing. It's kind of a case-by-case basis. I own all of my own stuff. I'd say it's probably 50-50. Some guys own their own stuff. Some guys use the team buys radios. I just kind of like to own my own stuff because when I know at the end of the year, no matter if I got a job, I got radios. Them guys, if you change teams or something, you got to give all your radios back and then try and figure out what you're going to do again next year. So, it's kind of a case-by-case deal, but, like, I own all my stuff because NASCAR made rules to where I can't have modified frequencies in my Cup radios. It's they thought you were hiding stuff and talking to people on there, trying to hide stuff from NASCAR. So they made us basically take everything besides Cup, Truck, and Xfinity out of our radios. So now I have 5 different radios that I got to use throughout the year.
Do they check your radios like each race or before you head up to the top or something?
Nope. They haven't checked them in about 3 years, but I'm sure the day I change them back, it'll be the day they check them.
I agree with that 100%. But, I mean, at the same time, really, you could just memorize a channel or a frequency and probably just...
Are you trying to get Freddie fired?
No, I'm just saying that they could do it. I'm saying anybody could do it. I could do it. I'm just...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the way our radios work, and Timmy will be able to tell you this, is, I can't program mine. I don't know if Timmy knows how or not, but, like, we can't just punch a button into ours and program it. It's got to get hooked up to a computer and stuff.
Okay.
So it's a lot more complicated than just eavesdropping.
Basically, his radio costs more than our entire setup
Right.
here right now.
That's right.
What it comes down to.
That's right.
Now, how many radios will you wear at a time? Like, I'm sure you have a backup, when you're up there, or not just batteries, but it's a whole separate radio in case that fails.
Yeah. So, I'll always have 4 radios on during a Cup race. We use one, obviously, to talk to the driver. We have one that's a separate channel that talks to just the crew chief where the driver can't hear us. I have one that I listen to myself, so it's basically just scanning myself to know I'll know, would be the first one to know if I have a problem. If I'm talking and I can't hear myself, something's wrong. Mm-hmm. And we'll have one to scan NASCAR.
Wow. And how do you multitask all of that going on? I mean, to make sure you're hearing yourself, wondering if the crew chief's yapping at you, and then you got Bubba saying, so I don't know. I'm having trouble trying to even speak of how complicated that sounds to me, and you take it seemingly in stride.
Yeah, it can get normally a lot of times it's not going on at the same time. Like obviously the crew chief can hear the driver, so if me and the crew chief are talking and Bubba tries to say something, we'll both get off the radio and listen to Bubba.
Okay.
Or but basically the way they just set it up, so like my headset is set up so where I can hear Bubba in both ears, obviously. Then I hear myself in my right ear. I hear NASCAR in my left ear, and then I'll have the crew chief. I'll have in both ears, but I turn the volume way down so I know the difference between Bubba being loud and the crew chief being lower. I'll know it's a second channel.
Okay. Now let me ask you. I mean, Bubba seems overall pretty a generally happy guy. Pretty calm, cool-headed. But I mean, I'm sure he gets unhappy with the car at some point. I mean, how do you keep the driver calm in those situations?
Basically, like I've been with Bubba so long, and we kind of get to the point where it's really like, all right, just shut up. It is what it is. We can't help you right now. You're gonna have to get us to a pit stop, But a lot of times, like part of our job, I feel like, is to kind of see that coming before it gets to that, and just kind of try to curtail it before, I mean, I know this is getting frustrating. Just stick with me. So because like the last thing I want to do is hear him yelling, because then it kind of demoralizes the guys a little bit, and they work their asses off to get them cars the best they can. And sometimes they're not that great. And the last thing they want to hear is some asshole going, oops, sorry, probably can't say that.
No, you're good. You're fine there. You can go a lot worse than that.
All right, 10-4. That's good because it's probably going to get worse.
At least he gets us some warning.
Yeah.
But yeah, the last thing they want to hear is somebody that does, is in the shop one day a week talking about how the car's a piece of junk. And so you kind of try and get out in front of that before he starts getting mad on the radio.
Okay. No, that makes sense.
Freddie, last week, Tony Hirschman said he actually listens back to his radio during the week. How does he do that? What records it? And do you do anything like that?
So Toyota actually has a program where they, as far as I know, because they've played it for me a couple times, they have everybody's audio that they can play back for each other. A lot of times I'll go back and you can buy the race from NASCAR audio. And it's like $20 a race or something like that. And you can get, like, if there's one you want to listen back to, you can just tell them, all right, make me a CD of this race, and you can go back and listen to it. But, yeah, Tony, they have some kind of deal with Toyota where they pretty much have every audio from every car for the race, so they can go back and listen to anything.
That's scary.
I know a lot of guys. A lot of guys on the tour now are taping themselves, and all they do is they got a thing like Josh has right there, a digital recorder. And they just have another radio or a scanner and plug it into that.
You just got a splitter, where it comes out. It's easy enough to record. But then it's another thing that you have to make sure you have batteries in or memory on. And, we can't get a podcast to work or get Casey's laptop to work. So, when you got more important things going on.
At the end of the day, it's always the spotter's fault anyway, right, Freddie?
Yeah. Timmy, you keep batteries in your recorder, or?
I'm lucky the battery in my radio's charged.
One of my favorite things after a NASCAR race is to listen to that like back and forth radio thing they always put together about it's pretty hilarious.
I think it used
to
be called Radioactive. Now it's called Scan All. It's one of the they add the video with it too, which is that's a whole extra step. But that is one of the most entertaining things to watch every week. So at least the spotters get to be a little famous too.
Yeah, they do an interesting job at editing some of that stuff to make it sound a little bit worse than it is, but it's pretty entertaining.
Have you heard our intros?
Well, spotters got their own podcast. TJ Graves and they have their own podcasts, and Freddie's on and Tim's on. We're turning in the next Dirty Mo Productions around here.
Let's not.
So I got a question for you, Freddie. We're going to shift gears in the technical aspect. As in this coming weekend, you guys are racing at Watkins Glen. You mentioned how Bubba hurt himself kind of an inconvenient time using that left foot to get around Watkins Glen. As a spotter, is it difficult for you to spot at a road course? Do you have an assistant? Do you have a backup? Do you have eyes around the racetrack? Are you allowed to have an extra pair of eyes on the racetrack? How do you guys do that?
Yeah, this is a piece of cake this week. I only got to do like one turn because I can't see shit there. But yeah, we'll have 4 guys or 3 or 4 guys depending. Ideally, you want to have 4 guys. We'll probably have 3, but you need a guy like a main spotter on the front straightaway, which I'll be able to see turn 10 and 11 and turn 1. And the front stretch, obviously. Then I'll lose him. Another guy will pick him up when he gets up to like the S's. And then that guy will lose him when he gets to the top of the hill in the S's. Another guy will pick him up for the bus stop. And then he'll be blind after he goes by the bus stop till I get back to him in turn 10. Ideally, there's a grandstand over there in turn 5 where they always wreck. They have big wrecks when they come off the carousel.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not going to have a guy there, I don't think. So I'll just do it off the television and hope to God it's not a 5-second delay.
Where are you? I don't see you yet.
Hey, Freddie, talking about Watkins Glen, it always comes up every time they go to Watkins Glen. It's kind of getting a little stale now, but I'd like to ask you anyway. Would you like to see them start using the boot again for the NASCAR guys at Watkins Glen, or do you like the track layout now?
Yeah, I'm all for it. Anything that's going to change it up. We're kind of, like you said, everything's kind of getting a little stale nowadays, especially road courses. So I'd mind like running the boot there. I'd like to run the whole course at Sonoma again. Like let's make it a little bit of a challenge and see, just make it different. Like right now you've got who's going to run the top 5 when you get there this week. You can have Allmendinger and Truex and Kyle. Let's switch it up, see if we can get some new blood in there.
Now, what is your opinion of the whole Charlotte Roval thing? I know it can be a loaded question, but I'm just curious. I mean, I have my opinions. I think we've already discussed it on the show.
You do.
But thanks, Sam. But what is your take on it? I mean, is it in the vein of changing things up? So hey, they're trying it, or is it not going to be worth it?
Well, honestly, I think Scott would be more of an expert on the situation because he's run more demo derbies than all of us. I think that's what we're gonna see. The problem with it is, I mean, it's not a bad idea, and the same thing about doing stuff different, but it's a road course where you don't have any room to run off the racetrack,
right?
And it's really narrow. The wall, there's walls on both sides, so if all it takes is one guy to make a mistake, and then he's got the whole racetrack blocked. So it's
just like the Watkins Glen thing that we're talking. I mean, they bounce off that guardrail, and then there's nowhere to go.
Yeah, and that's like Watkins Glen. It's just two little straightaways. It's Roval. That's the whole track. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, when they get on the big track, it'll be fine, but they're not going to wreck up there, you'd imagine. But like getting into turn one, and they've put giant curbs everywhere. It's just there's as far as guys that we've talked to, we went and tested for an hour before Bubba junked our car, but there's nowhere to pass really. It's be interesting to see how it goes. They try to stay optimistic about it, but hopefully it doesn't turn into a shit show like it seems like it's gonna.
They mentioned
Freddie, wasn't that road course originally designed for legend cars?
Yeah, it was a legend car track. So now we're gonna run.
Now they're trying to race cup cars on it. It's crazy.
Well, they mentioned that they have an issue.
Yeah.
Goodyear has an issue apparently, Freddie, and I'm sure you've seen it and heard about it, about the different compound they're trying to bring. That the infield is so flat compared to the banking, they can't get the tire compound down right. Is that correct?
Yeah, they were having trouble the day we were there testing. I didn't go to the second test. We were in Eldora, but they were struggling with the speed that they were carrying in through the oval, and building too much heat in the tires versus how slow they were going through the inside. So they're just trying to find a happy medium there, I guess. But it's definitely it's crazy the speed differences between what you're doing on the racetrack versus how slow you're going through the infield.
Do you think it's going to come down to people not doing any passing in the road course section, and they're going to wait until they get onto the NASCAR track to do the passing?
Yeah, but I don't even know that you'll be able to pass there because you're so slow getting onto the oval that you don't have the momentum built up to make a move. It's you kind of follow the leader out of the two chicanes that lead up to the oval. So it's just going to be hard to pass. There's one. Like you run through 1 and 2 on the oval, and there's one chicane on the backstretch where you might be able to dive bomb a guy or move him up out of the way. It's it looks like a bus stop, basically like Watkins Glen. So you might be able to do some stuff there, but they keep changing the racetrack back there because we keep trying to figure out ways to cut it. So they keep having to build extra walls. So we'll see what it looks like when we get back. But there's just like 2 passing zones basically at all, and they're not very good ones.
So it's pretty much going to come down to pit stops, huh? Who has the fastest pit stops?
I'd say pit stops, restarts, who wants to move who out of the way.
We could always put a flagpole on the front stretch in front of the flag stand and let them, do one circle around.
Freddie,
Don't give them any ideas. They might think about that.
It'll be the All-Star race. Sorry.
Our last podcast, Winston said they weren't sure if they were going to use more than one spotter there. Has your team talked about that at all?
Yeah, so we haven't seen what the racetrack's going to look like with people in the infield yet, basically, is what the main concern is. Right now, we can see the whole track. Like, when we went tested, you could see everything fine. There's one small blind spot, but then now they're talking that they're going to fill the infield with campers, so that'll make us blind off of turn 3 or turn 4, whatever it is. So we're thinking we're going to have to put a guy on the backstretch that can see that back there by that big TV. So, but it should be fine, I think. If they put us high enough, there's a spot in the the highest grandstand towards turn 1. If they put us there, we should be able to see everything, I think. But just a matter of NASCAR is going to let us change the locations or not.
Now, Freddie, when you do go to a place where you use more than one spotter, do you pick the spotters you want to work with, or do they just stick you with somebody? Or?
Well, actually, at Petty, we're lucky enough. We have a guy named Shannon McGlandry that works in the shop. He used to spot for Jeff Gordon, so they said, "Do you mind if Shannon does it?" I'm good with that. Got anybody who experience, and some of the teams already have guys they've been using for years, and it's kind of hard to find people. So if they got somebody that's got experience and is pretty good that at least and have some kind of relationship with, you really just sign off on it and be okay with it. And if they come to you and say, hey, we need to find a guy, then there's always a list of guys you can go to and find somebody.
Well, especially being down there in Charlotte, I'm sure you guys have a lot of guys to pick from that are just in the local area.
There's guys.
Yeah,
guys
and
holding signs on the street.
you go to a place like Watkins Glen, and you can get guys, get modified guys and stuff like that are up there.
Right.
That can do a corner. It's not.
That was my next question. Like, say if you wanted to pull my brother in to do a corner or something like that, how does that work with NASCAR? Do you have to get him a hard card or a day pass or a special spotter pass or something like that?
Technically speaking, you would have to get him a license and go through that whole process. But I have heard of a couple guys that just maybe get some passes and go up there and stand in the corner and just quiet and be fine. But
if they're not checking your radios, I mean, who's going to know?
You're supposed to go through the whole process, but we'll see.
Yeah.
It's not Canada, right, Tim?
No Canada.
Timmy, there's hills. I don't know how you feel about those hills.
You know how I feel. That's why I don't go to Bristol. You know exactly how I feel about hills.
It doesn't walk up those hills.
I told Winston last week if the modified tour goes to Canada next year, the 58's going to need a spotter. So keep that in mind, boy.
Yeah,
because
if things don't work out, the 43, I'll cover you for one race.
Because I know Hot Pockets ain't allowed over the border either. So
that's for sure.
Now, Freddie, what about like track like Indy? Now, can you get away with one spotter at Indy, or do you need more than one spotter there?
No, we use 2 at Indy also, and we're actually thinking about changing locations this year. So for the Indy 500, they actually put a spotter in turn 1 and a spotter in turn 3 to see each corner of the racetrack. It's just too big to see the whole thing. The Brickyard, we actually stand on that pagoda in the infield, so we have to have a guy on each side of it. But now the trees on that golf course have grown so big and so thick that it's hard to see the back straightaway. So now we're talking about going to turn 1 and turn 3, but I'd like to just stay where we're at.
All right, Freddie, you brought up the pagoda, and you are a spotter. What happened back a couple of years with Tim Fido? Didn't he get thrown off the pagoda for throwing a sandwich off it or something like that?
So Kevin Harvick, sponsored by Jimmy John's, obviously, and
Pretty fast.
They give Timmy a bag of sandwiches every week to bring up to the spotter stand, or they give the team a bag of sandwiches, not just Timmy, but so Timmy comes up every once in a while with a bag of sandwiches. And the pagoda's got actually the top story actually has 2 stories on it, so most of the guys stand on the bottom level and just kind of go back and forth during practice because it's not much going on. There's not many cars on the track. But some guys go to the very top of the building, and you can see the whole racetrack from up there. And Timmy was up there, and one of the gentlemen on the lower section decided he wanted a sandwich. So Timmy threw him down a sandwich from the next level, and he missed it completely. And it fell off the roof and hit the president of Indianapolis Motor Speedway in the head. Or landed something like that.
Oh.
I didn't know what was going on. It was the middle of practice, and I didn't know what was going on. It looked like Air Force One had just rolled onto the top of the pagoda. There was guys with guns and snipers.
Oh, dear God.
Timmy got about 15 minutes of practice off that day to go to the trailer.
Oh. Wow. I mean, and it's not like when Michael Waltrip drops a taco on a car. I mean.
No, not quite. It's like a torpedo aiming for the guy that's running the show.
That's incredible.
That's why you eat Jersey Mike's.
That sub was not in a tub, however.
I work at Jersey Mike's, Freddie. That's what makes it funny.
Is Tim Fido still Kevin Harvick's spotter?
Yeah, Timmy's still with Kevin.
Now, on a previous podcast,
I bet he doesn't bring sandwiches to Indy anymore.
Scott asked a question. With the grandstands not being, the back grandstands not being at Daytona anymore, now do you have to do the whole track, or do they go somewhere else there to the second spotter?
Nah, yeah, we're all doing the whole track now. Even ever since I've been going to Daytona, I've always done the whole track. They used to make, when I started, ARCA had a mandatory second spotter, but you never really used them. It was kind of like you got your buddy a pit pass, and he went and sat back there and drank beer while you spotted the race. But, yeah, I don't know how they used to do it back in the day. Like, as much as is going on, like, if you're using 2 spotters, like, I don't know where you turn it over at while you're 3 wide in the middle. But, yeah, now we just do it all ourselves with binoculars. It's not that bad.
Now, how many tracks do you use the binoculars for? I mean, is it most of them, or I mean, like, I mean, you don't need it at Bristol, but at what size track do you maybe begin needing that?
Yeah. I would say, I mean, I usually wear them everywhere. I don't really use them everywhere. I'll usually hang them around my neck and have them in case we get 3 wide or something on a 1.5 mile. Normally, you won't really need them there. You won't need them at your miles or your short tracks, obviously. I'll use them all day at Daytona. I'll use them all day at Talladega. I'll use them a lot on the road courses. Michigan, the bigger tracks, the Pocono, Indy, use them there a lot. But most of the 1.5 miles, I'll have them on, but you don't really use them all that much.
Okay.
Now, you spot for Bubba, obviously, when you ran the dirt race at Eldora, and I do believe you guys got a win together there, correct?
Yeah, yep, the second race there.
People always ask me, what's the difference between spotting asphalt? What was your take on spotting Eldora?
So the year we won with Bubba, it was pretty easy. I mean, the race wasn't easy, but it's easy to spot because it's just the groove just moved up against the wall, and you just, all right, stay up top and don't get off the wall. And if the guy dove in there, you just had to clear him or not. The last couple of years, they've made it a little more racy, which I went and did Stuart Friesen last year, the year before, and I did Tanner Thorson this year. And the challenging part about having a dirt guy is they just hang a left whenever they want and think they're going to change lanes and slide a guy, and so you kind of like the way that track's laid out. It doesn't look real wide, but they kind of got to know exactly where a guy's at. Like, an oval or some short track, it's inside or outside. Now at that dirt race, it's like he's inside 2 lanes down. It's like, you're in the middle of the racetrack, he's down against the wall, or he's outside 1 lane up. So it's kind of, you got to spot more lanes and tell them exactly where they're at so they know. All right, they can slide down a lane or they can slide up and get in front of a guy on a slide job or something. So it's a little bit different, but it's the same principles.
Yeah. Now, when the guy is maybe attempting to make a slide job on him, do you scream out like Dale Jr. going, "Slide job"?
I was just about to ask that.
I just close my eyes and hope for the best and see what happens.
That's a good way of life.
I tricked.
Now, how does like Bubba or anybody else you spotted for, when you have 2 spotters or 3 spotters, however many you have, do they like that? Is it confusing for them since Bubba's always used to you being on the radio? How does that work from the driver's perspective? Do you know?
A lot of times they're kind of uncomfortable. Like, they get so used to hearing the same voice and the same, like, if I key up, Bubba knows like if Bubba's passing a guy and he hears me key up, he pretty much knows he's clear before I say it, where he doesn't have that same trust factor with the guy that he doesn't know or hasn't been working with. And, I don't like that. But I know Bubba's felt that way just, and I'm sure if it's somebody that he works with for a couple of years now, like if we stay at RPM for 3 years and Shannon does every race, he'll have that same comfort with Shannon. But it's kind of hard to build it up when they're only coming in for a couple races a year and you don't know exactly what you're going to get out of that guy. But, I mean, like I said, it's just a comfort thing for them. And they get used to it eventually.
Well, actually, going back to the comfort and having such a relationship, and I'm sure it had to have been worse for you with Bubba in this in the accident this weekend. That pause after the hit or after the car comes to a stop. Are you already on the radio? Are you okay? Are you okay? Or do you wait for him to respond? Or and that pause, I'm sure, has to kill you inside, but. How do you handle that situation?
Yeah, so obviously, like I seen with the lap before, he had said he had a problem with his brakes, and we just said, all right, just manage it the best you can. He said the pedal got a little long, so what happened was he came down the front stretch, and to make sure they had brakes in the turn 1, he kind of pumped the pedal a little bit just to make sure it was there. But when he pumped the pedal, it got too hot, exploded the rotor and the caliper. So then we had nothing. So he hung a left, and I was speechless. Just, it was sickening to watch him heading that way. Mm-hmm. And I've seen that one other time before, and we don't need to talk about that. But, just watching him head for that wall and just like, you're just hoping to God he gets it turned a little bit, which he did, luckily. And it hit, more right side than head on. And then as soon as it came to a stop is when I started, tell me you're all right. And he was having trouble talking and just knocked the wind out of him, obviously. I heard, yeah. So then I gave another couple seconds, and are you all right? Yeah, I'm okay. So before he dropped the net, he was already talking to me, and I immediately got on the phone, started texting his girlfriend, his parents. All right, if you're not listening, he's talking, he's fine. But yeah, it was definitely, like I said, I think I posted on Facebook that he answered me immediately, but it was still the longest 1 second of my life because as hard as he is, like just the angle he was heading at and the way it looked, it just wasn't fun. Brought back too many bad memories.
Yeah, no, I completely understand, and I know watching the video of it and that delay, because I mean, as a fan just watching the race, you know, yeah, you were talking to him, so I mean, you were feeling a little bit better about it. I'm sure the crew chief's hearing it and all that, but you know, the fans watching on TV, waiting for that window net to come down. I mean, it was a while. It does give you a sick feeling inside, and we've seen. I mean, everybody goes to that Casey Kane wreck on the backstretch when they talk about like wrecks at Pocono, but I think, I mean, you had Jimmy Johnson last year, a similar brake problem.
Elliott Sadler had that really bad wreck.
Well, I'm going to get to that, but then I think with Johnson's wreck, you also had McMurray right behind him on the same lap, same turn. Jeff Gordon had a hard hit there. And then I think by far Sadler's was the worst before the safer barrier when they still let him get down into that grass there and he hit that barrier at that terrible angle. And I mean these guys. I mean I think we've seen all at least I want to say it was Gordon, Johnson, and Sadler basically barely get out of the car and just sit down next to the car. And you know here we saw Bubba. You know when he thankfully got out under his own power. Just take a seat next to the car for a minute, catch his breath before he got in the ambulance. I mean, it's tremendous. It's that he's doing as well, but it's still a scary, gut wrenching, sight, especially when you don't know all the information right then and there. So I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that was probably the hardest one for you, especially being close with him. But.
Yeah. Freddie, do you know where that car is now? Did that car go back to the NASCAR research, or is it in Dale Jr.'s yard over there?
So it went to NASCAR for them to look at it, and I was back at the shop today, and I guess Junior called them today, and it's going to be going to Junior's at some point. So,
the graveyard there.
Yeah, wow. I mean. It's unfortunately that was probably one. Nancy's waving to us on the webcam. Hi, Nancy. Anyway,
Brian refused to wave.
That's fine. We don't like him.
Well, I heard that he was with Dale Jr. So he was on Dale Jr.'s podcast, and Dale Jr. flat out asked him, "Hey, can I have your car?" So if that's the case, Freddie, I'm sorry we can't give you anything in return.
Yeah. Terrible.
I would say we could give you a tank top, but Sam refuses to bring them to anybody.
No offense, Freddie, but I don't want to see you in a tank top. I'll give you a regular T-shirt.
I gotta be serious. I look like a King Kong in a tank top. We don't need to do that.
Well, for our listeners who haven't watched the race, we're glad to see Bubba's okay. Thanks for Freddie coming on. Kyle Busch ended up winning the race, had a strong showing. With that late race caution brought by Bubba Wallace, it gave a 10-lap shootout, or a little less than 10-lap shootout for the race win. And it was a pretty good, show towards the end. But like I said, good to see Bubba's okay, and really cool to see, get Freddie's perspective of everything.
Well, I want to know what Freddie thought about the local action at Wall Stadium Saturday night. I mean, we had triple factory stock features, which I'm sorry, I don't care if you're a modified guy or not. The factory stocks are the show. So, Freddie, what did you think of the action at Wall Stadium Saturday?
Yeah, it was awesome. I got there right as the feature started. So I watched the whole first factory stock race. And I got there. Let me back up. It was pretty much a typical Wall Saturday night for me. I got there. Jimmy started bitching that he could only put 2 tires on. Everybody else got 4. So I had to leave. So when I left that, I went up to watch the factory stock race, say hi to Grandpa, say hi to Timmy, come down. So I watched that, came back. Then it was, I didn't get for the second one, but I got to watch Scott yell at Elliott for a little bit. That was exciting. And then we went out.
That happens every Saturday, so if you want to see it again next Saturday.
And then, so then I went up and was one of the 5 spotters for Jimmy. I did the first turn, and actually what happened was, I think the way it was working was I was spotting for Hot Pockets while Hot Pockets spotted for Jimmy, because I had to calm him down while he calmed Jimmy down. So it was a little circle. We were doing good.
I'm very curious because I'm pretty good friends with Derek Hopkinson. So what was going on the radio while Derek was all over y'all's bumper? Because that's not
Oh,
something
just
you see typically on Saturday night. You know, Jimmy usually pulls away, so I was kind of surprised.
Yeah, we were basically just telling Jimmy that, and Jimmy was lucky that it was Derek back there because I think anybody else probably would have spun him out, honestly. And Jimmy's car wasn't very good, and it must have been the 2 tires. I'm sure that's what I'll tell everybody. But I just got on the radio and said you can park on the bottom and drive. He's always got good motor, good drive off. So I just said protect the bottom and drive off. I said the kid's just going to run in your back bumper all night long. It looks like. So that's what he did, and but Derek was definitely faster than Jimmy. And last I heard, Jimmy went over and thanked him for running him clean. I think he bought him a couple tires out of the purchase money for this week. So. It was a good race. I thought it was a great modified race.
Yeah, for those who haven't been to Wall Stadium, Jimmy Blue won. The factory stock feature was won by Elliott Wall, Richie Burns, and John Bowers. Good to see John finally get a win off the season.
Yeah, first win in 5 years for John Bowers. He deserved that. I mean, I was right on his bumper, and Elliott was on the outside, and John was right in front of me. And the last few laps we were really going at it, and John really hung tough, and he deserved that win. I was glad to see John get a win.
And we'll go back to the factory stock features because it was the highlight of the weekend. Shannon Manjo won the Lim Late models, and Nick Van Winkle won again the Legend Cars this season.
Good. It was a packed house. I saw some pictures.
It looked like a Friday Turkey Derby crowd.
That's awesome. That is very awesome.
It did.
I'm so excited. I was supposed to be there.
I talked to Diane when was upstairs getting paid at the end of the night, and I complimented her on a great turnout with the fans. And she said, typically after a rain out, she does have a better crowd after a rain out. And we did rain out the week before. And she said on top of that, Snap-on purchased 400 tickets, and they had 400 guests there. So on top of a normal crowd, she had 400 people from Snap-on there.
That's all.
I will say, too,
go ahead, Casey,
that the show was run very, very smoothly. I think all of the features were done in, Warren said, 2 hours and 47 minutes.
That's all Sam's doing, though.
Whoa.
Yeah, right. Sam just
It's a
has
team
to see
effort.
people's underwear.
It's a
That's all
team
he
effort.
does.
It's a team effort.
But anyway, the carnival, they had the whole carnival theme going on, which was, I mean, that's not great. A lot of games for the kids and everything. So, I mean, awesome job by everyone at Wall. As much as I love Scott, it was kind of nice to see him not win. Because he goes out to every freaking enduro. Oh, came home won again.
Hey, he's putting the RPM podcast in victory lane in the enduro. You cannot,
that's true.
hate the man.
A dirt guy, just like I'm apparently turning into a
dirt guy?
girl.
Oh, Casey's turning into a dirt guy.
Christina Aguilera up there.
I had a good night, though. I mean, I have the Jimmy Blewett excuse in the first race. I didn't put tires on for the first race, and I finished 8th. I saved them for the second race. I put tires on for the second race and finished second, and then in the third race, I finished third.
And you didn't get DQ'd in the second race when you were worried about tires on the grid, so I didn't lie to you this time, Scott.
Right.
How was the factory stock race? Did they behave themselves?
I didn't get to really watch it because I was busy lining the other cars up, but I didn't hear anyone complain.
Okay.
And we did have a scary moment in the first race. Waylon Spears was driving his girlfriend Teresa Collins' car, and the throttle stuck wide open on the first lap, and he went straight into the wall. I was very happy to see Waylon get out of the car. That was a hard hit, and that was the only really big accident we had in all 3 races. And matter of fact, the second race went green the checker without a yellow flag, so that was a fun race. And the whole night went really smooth. Like Keith is right. I mean, the night was flawless. It really went great, and it was a great
The
time.
sportsmen were behaved, kind of.
Yeah, they didn't take any guardrails down, so yeah.
And we did have a threat of rain all night.
That Kyle Sisko won the sportsman race.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
forgot that part.
Oops. Sorry, Kyle.
Don't worry, Kyle. I got your back.
Too many Kyles.
We did have a threat of rain all day, and we only had like a little sprinkle, and that was between warm-ups and the heat races. So the weather didn't even really affect the track at all. It was a good night. It really was a good night.
I had a pretty good downpour down here. I mean, it did. The weather looked iffy for the whole day, and
we have a crew guy that lives in Bricktown. He almost didn't come. He's like, Scott, it was pouring at my house. I'm sorry, I'm late, but it was pouring at my house, and we. There was rain in the area.
As soon as Ryan and I showed up right before qualifying, it had that short 20-minute sprinkler. I thought I brought the rain. I was about to leave.
Yeah.
Coming from Pocono, I had called Katie because I was on Garden State Parkway, I don't know, exit 103 or something, and it was pouring. I said, "Did you not tell me it was raining?" I drove all the way down here for nothing. I'm going to kill somebody. And, it's like, it's not raining here. I was like, "Oh, all right, I'll be there in a minute."
And Freddie, with that being said, how was the weather at Pocono? Because I know that Pennsylvania was having terrible floods up that way. Was there any like flooded parking lots there or roads flooded out into the track?
The infield grass was pretty soggy. It wasn't flooded by any means. Whenever the ARCA race was, Friday night, it was really bad lightning, thunderstorm. It poured. We only got about half the ARCA race in. But other than that, the weather itself was nice on Saturday and Sunday, but the ground was a little bit soggy.
That's good, because last time at Pocono for the Cup race, it was freezing in June.
Every time at Pocono, it's raining, fog, freezing.
It's bipolar over there in Pocono.
Fill it with water, be better.
Yeah.
Boat races.
Freddie, did you drive down from Pocono by yourself, or was Brian Kramer with you?
Yeah, I went by myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, why did you choose to go to Wall Stadium rather than going to Riverhead for the 77-lap modified race?
Basically, it's just normally I do go to Riverhead. I usually go to Riverhead both Pocono races. That's just my home track. And this year they moved. Normally we're done by like 1, 2 o'clock. So if I drive to Riverhead, it's like 3 hours, maybe a little more if I hit traffic. So I'll get there by like 5, 6 o'clock, and they don't start the show till 7 also. Well, this time they ran qualifying at 4:30. So we actually transferred a couple rounds, but I didn't get out of the track until 5 o'clock. So if I would have drove to Riverhead, I would have got there at 8:30, something like that. So I said, I might as well go to Wall. It's closer. I know I'll make it. I haven't seen Jimmy since the Derby, so figured why not do something different.
That's awesome. I mean, I didn't know that you guys had that much free time on the weekends between all the action over at Pocono.
Really? Yeah, we really don't. We really don't, but we kind of just try and squeeze it in. Like, if I get any chance I get to go watch a modified race anywhere, normally like the first week we ran the Xfinity race, ran a little bit late, so I went to Mahoning. It's just any time you get to watch a modified race, I'm in. It's I tell everybody if I could go modified racing for a living, I'd be there in a second, but it unfortunately doesn't pay quite the same.
Well, getting back to the local segment too at Wall Stadium, after my third feature, we were in Tech, and I came back to my trailer, and I had these 3 famous spotters sitting on my trailer: my brother, Freddie Kraft, and Hot Pockets Brian Kramer. And not one of them offered to put one tire back on the tire rack for me. And they just sat there and watched me load the tire rack up.
I thought Timmy was going to do it.
I thought Freddie was going to do
it. That's about as far as he was going to put the tires back in the tire rack.
They're all talk. That's the problem. Actually, this is a loaded question for Freddie, but I asked Justin Bonsignore before. You said you go anywhere to watch a modified race. What is your opinion of Bowman Gray?
Oh, boy.
I don't know. That's a modified circus more than a modified race.
Okay.
We agree.
Yeah.
We agree.
I mean, it's exciting. We go, me and Hirschman go every year. We go on Saturday after the Xfinity race to Charlotte. Megan loads up a cooler for us and meets us at the track, or we meet here at the apartment, get changed, and head up there. And it's I wouldn't go every week, or I definitely wouldn't race there every week. It's like Wall on steroids. You want to kill everybody around you. But
I never wanted to kill anybody at Wall.
Yeah, I don't know. That's not what I saw. But it's entertaining. I'll say that. I wouldn't call it racing. It's more entertainment.
My brother also asked Justin a pretty interesting question. He asked Justin, what tracks would he like to see the modified tour run next year, like a different track? I'm going to ask you the same question, but on the Cup side, what would you? Is there a track out there that you would want to see the Cup cars race that they don't go to right now?
I just like to see more short tracks. I think everybody's kind of in the same agreement on that. Like, let's go back to North Wilkesboro. Even if it's like the All-Star race, and it does, just open that place up. We were just talking. They just released something where they're going to put $50 million to renovate the infield at Talladega. Like, take that 50 and take 10 of it, and you can rebuild North Wilkesboro and make it great again, and have a great short track race there. I think maybe not so much the Cup cars, but the Xfinity cars for sure. The trucks just need to get back to short tracks, like your damn Hickories, your South Bostons. They used to run Flemington, obviously. Just get back to that short track route where a guy can feel like it's his home track. You get a South Boston late model guy that says, all right, you know what, I could throw a truck together for fairly inexpensive, short track. I don't need the best body. I don't need the best motor. and I can go out there and race against these guys. Now, you just don't have that anymore. There's nobody that runs mile and a half weekly that, all right, I'm going to go out here and show these guys what I got. I just think overall we need to get back to our roots a little bit more. We kind of trying to get away from that, and I just think that would promote racing overall and better.
Do you think the Cup cars will ever go to Iowa?
I don't think so. I don't think they have the seating capacity. I don't think they have the infrastructure around it as far as hotels and stuff like that. It'd be a tough sell to go to Iowa, I think. I mean, it'd be great racing. It'd be an unbelievable race, I think, but I don't think that they have the facilities set up to do it right.
Okay. I'd say that's fair. They have plenty of corn, though, if you want corn in the Cup.
They've got corn everywhere.
Go ahead. No, go.
Speaking of that, we're going to wrap up the local segment here with Freddie. Next week at Wall Stadium, it's Kids Sport Night. If ages from 7 to 17, wear your favorite team's shirt or jersey from any sport, and you'll get in for free. Gates open at 5 p.m., qualifying at 5:45. Features start at 7. Modified Sportsman 4 cylinders and twin legend races. No factory stocks.
Yeah, Scott gets a few days off.
Yeah, we're off. I am racing Bridgeport Friday night, though.
I think I might be there.
Oh, really? Good. Nancy's
Maybe.
gonna
I'm
race.
trying to convince Ryan to go to watch on Saturday to Bridgeport.
I'll be racing Friday night.
Oh, that's what I meant. Friday.
Yeah, Friday night.
Saturday,
And
I
Nancy's
won't
going to race, so she's going to, second try at dirt. The first time at Grandview didn't go so well for her, and we're going to get her back on the track at Bridgeport.
And
which track are you guys racing Friday?
The quarter mile.
The quarter. Okay.
It's
and
fun.
then I think
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a blast.
And then I think Saturday I'll be at Sealings Grove with Ryan's brother, and then Sunday Ryan's racing the 360 at Susquehanna, Baps, Dusky, whatever you want to call it.
I have a quick question for Freddie before we get off. Do you have any more modified gigs lined up for the rest of the year? Because I know you're a modified guy 100%, and I know that's where you want to be, but do you have anything?
Yeah, we were hoping to go to Chemung this week. I think there's an ROC race at Chemung while we're in Watkins Glen, but they've jacked that schedule around again, so I'm not sure we'll make it over there. Me and Hirsch usually go over, watch that. I'll spot for Timmy Salamito at Bristol again. I don't know. So I spotted for Timmy since he's like 15 years old at Riverhead, and we won a bunch of races when he ran Charger cars there. We run a bunch of races of modifieds. And since he's got on the tour, every race I spot for him, we crash, break, fall. I don't know what happened. So we're trying to break that luck. Eventually, I'm just going to have to quit. But hopefully one time we get a decent run before I got to quit. But, yeah, that's just right now. And then, of course, I'll be at the Derby. I think I got about 47 years left on my contract with Jimmy for that one. So I'll be there for that. And I think that's about it for modified this year.
All right. I'm just going to say real quick, because we're really not going to get into our open wheel segment this week, just because we've had, we ran long on time. But
so Justin, you can say Justin took up way too much time.
Yeah, that was the main problem. And then Scott.
He brought the open wheel segment to the show, the modifieds.
Yeah, no, I meant real open wheel.
Yikes. Sorry, Justin.
Freddie, you anybody you want to plug or thank or anything?
Yep, thank you guys for having me on. Megan's here. I'm keeping her awake, yelling into the phone.
Thanks, Megan.
So I'll thank her for not yelling at me. My dog's falling asleep. Other than that, just thanks for Justin for not talking too much crap. I hope. I don't think we talked nearly enough shit about Justin, but.
Now, Freddie, does your wife work in NASCAR down there, or does she travel with you to these races, or how's that work for you?
No, she works in banking down here, and then she'll come to like the races we can drive to. So Martinsville is only a couple hours away. She'll go to Bristol, the second one for the modified, and this year they moved the modified schedule around this week, so she'll actually be able to stay for the whole weekend this time, which will be good. We've talked about doing Darlington. That's only a couple hours away. So the close ones like. No matter if she wants to come, I got to get her a seat on our charter planes, and it's kind of expensive. So she'll fly every once in a while. She'll pick one. She came to Vegas one time. She came to Daytona one time. So she'll come to here and there. If there's a modified race, she's kind of like me. If there's a modified race going on, she wants to be there. Cup race, whatever.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So to wrap things up, I just want to say F1, they had a decent race going on. Not their best for the year. We're going to get into depth with that next week's episode because they're heading into their summer break.
That's right. We have plenty of time to talk about F1.
Exactly. And IndyCar, excellent race at Mid-Ohio. I'm going to give Sam some time to actually watch that and catch up. I'm going to tell you, it was an incredible race. It really was through and through. A lot of excitement, pit problems, pit guns. We can talk about pit guns again.
Can't wait.
Seriously, it was one of the best races of the weekend. So, Sam, and listeners, you should go, if you haven't watched it, get caught up on that. And, again, next week we will go into depth on that because IndyCar, even if they are racing next weekend, no one will know because it's IndyCar. But with that, I'm going to go real quick into what have we learned today. Hopefully Scott wrote something down this week. Probably not.
I forgot all about it again.
So we will start with Tim. What have you learned today?
I learned that Justin doesn't like seafood.
Okay.
That's really about it. I learned that Casey has technical issues over there.
She has more than technical issues.
I just have issues.
And
Period.
I learned that
Usually because of Sam.
I learned she's liking to become a dirty girl.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
That's a good one.
You need some cold water in that apartment.
Oh, jeez. Casey, what have you learned today?
I learned that Justin traveled the world.
Around the world.
I learned that Bubba cuddles with Ryan Blaney, according to Freddie. And I also learned that Scott likes to yell at Elle.
Yeah. All right, Scott, what have you learned?
I learned that it's always the spotter's fault. I don't have a spotter in the factory stock, so I don't get to blame anybody but myself. So
I miss Eric Graham. He was kind of a spotter. More for me because Scott would be lapping me, and I
for the 7th time.
Yeah, well, in the Enduros, absolutely. What have you learned today?
I learned that you're trying to poke me in the eye with that.
I did not. I tried to hang this on your glass. Whatever. Sam, what have you learned today?
I didn't expect Freddie to be here, so I'm gonna say it anyway. Josh is trying to get Freddie fired. Justin will go. Will do great in Stafford because we don't bring bad luck here in the RPM podcast. Justin doesn't like seafood. Spotters radios cost more than the RPM podcast.
Yep.
It's okay to tell Bubba Wallace to shut up, as per Freddie. You need a 1099 to be a NASCAR spotter. It's probably going to get worse, as it didn't here on the RPM podcast with Freddie Kraft. Freddie's going to get Tim to work a corner. Jimmy Johns will get you thrown out of Indy, which is why you should eat Jersey Mike's. Casey is turning into a dirty guy. And Scott didn't quit the RPM podcast. So I learned a lot.
Oh, I'm still here.
Is Freddie still there?
That was like a novel.
Yeah, Freddie's still here.
What did he learn?
Yeah, Freddie, what did you learn today?
I'm gonna do my best to not talk anything mean about Justin. I learned that you guys are doing a hell of a job on this podcast. I listened to last week's with Tony, and I appreciate you guys making fun of Hot Pockets and Crowley. That was exciting. And I learned that Wall's never going to change. And I don't know. That's about it.
Well, I learned today. I learned that Casey needs to work on her buttons and her holes.
Oh my God!
I learned that Justin will let us know if we jinxed him for Saturday. I learned that you may have Big Chief and Boss Hoss, but they always beat Eddie Murphy. I learned that Justin's arm doesn't itch. I learned that there are going to be restrictor plates at Bristol. Let's see. I learned that drinking makes it easier to talk to Eric Brennan.
It's funny because it's true.
Accurate.
That rule applies to everybody.
I learned that Tim doesn't like Nancy.
What did I say about Nancy?
You don't like hills.
Oh, that's good. What about Bristol, Freddie?
F that hill, boy.
I just learned that don't bring sandwiches to Indy, and I learned that Freddie looks like King Kong in a tank top.
Oh my God! Freddie's not gonna want to come back. He just took back that compliment of the RPM podcast.
That's why he said it.
Anyway, with that, Freddie, safe travels and good luck at Watkins Glen. We appreciate your time here on the RPM podcast. For our listeners who haven't yet, subscribe to us on YouTube. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and more at the RPM Podcast or at facebook.com/Racing Podcast NJ. Check us out using the hashtag the RPM Podcast.
Make sure you like and subscribe
right.
on YouTube.
Justin did it. He did it while he was on the show.
Yeah.
Hopefully Freddie will do it too. We got to get out there, folks.
I will.
And that's one way. So, Freddie, thank you again. Bailey, Scott, Casey, Tim, Josh, we did it again. Sam Ballard here on the RPM Podcast. Yeah. We'll see you again for the 108th time next week on the RPM Podcast. Good night, folks.
Go to wall.
Good night, guys. Go to wall.